want to make a playoff run later in the season. But the fact that you've also got Seattle coming up next week, it adds a little bit more intensity in a home game where you have some fans in the stands, thank goodness, but it's still going to add that intensity, wanting to come out with a win today. But they're going to have to do it without some of their top dogs. And we look at some of the injury news for the Dallas Cowboys. There's quite a bit of injury news. They have 9 players on injured reserve at the moment. No other NFL team has more than 5. And the first one that we're going to look at is Anthony Brown, a cornerback, late in the week, rib injury, and the corner in Anthony Brown. Luckily, you get Jordan Lewis back, but he's a huge loss, Barry. Yeah, this is a huge loss. I mean, it seems like the Cowboys just cannot buy a break early in the season. I mean, it's only week 2, and you have 3 starters on IR already. I mean, luckily, we're going to get La'el Collins back here soon, hopefully, but this is a big blow to the defense. I mean, Anthony Brown, he's that tailor-made nickel kind of slot cornerback for Mike Nolan's defense, and but luckily, you know, to soften the blow a little bit, we do have Jordan Lewis coming back, and I think you can swap these guys in and out. They're both kind of that tailor-made nickel position, so hopefully that'll soften the blow a little bit, but we're going to miss Anthony Brown out there.
Absolutely. I mean, Anthony Brown, obviously, he's a well-respected player who's earned his right to come out here and play on this team as a starter. So you're definitely going to miss him. It's unfortunate that he had this injury during practice or whatever it may have occurred. But the good news is you get Lewis back. Yeah. Right? You get Lewis back, and he's also, you know, a high-energy guy. He's feisty. He's nasty. He's exactly what you need going into this game. And let's not forget about the fact that you also have a guy by the name of Brandon Carr who may be able to help you out this week. So
that's a good point.
That's
true. You have some veteran help on the backside. Anthony Brown, who had a fantastic training camp. It's unfortunate to see what happened to him, especially after he kind of struggled a little bit in week 1. Gave up 10 yards per catch and then also a passer rating of 101.1. But you look at week 1 and some of those other injuries, Leighton Vander Esch being out is a killer for this defense. We saw it last year. He missed 7 games in 2019. Cowboys were 3-4 in those games, but the defense just isn't the same without LVE in the middle.
Yeah, it's just not the same at all. I mean, here's a guy that's your middle linebacker. Here's your sideline to sideline guy. I mean, he's all over the field for this Dallas Cowboys defense. And what I think they're going to miss most about him, or quality that they're going to miss most about him on the field, is he was able to make everybody right out there. If a defensive lineman were to stunt in the wrong gap or hit the wrong gap versus the run, with his instincts and his quicks, he was able to make that a manageable game for this defense. So they're going to miss him out there, and especially without having that veteran backup presence as far as Sean Lee is concerned. It's kind of got me worried about this linebacking crew.
Yeah, you're worried for good reason. You're worried for absolute good reason. Vander Esch was the backbone to the middle of this team, right, on this side of the ball. So defense, they needed Vander Esch. They were happy about the fact that he made the move over to middle linebacker, and so that they freed up the dude named Jalen Smith.
Oh yeah,
who likes to run around and hit, right? But you're looking forward to coming home and playing, at AT&T Stadium. You're looking forward to seeing that doggone wolf howling in the middle of the defense, and you're not going to have that. So hopefully, we got Jalen Smith. Hopefully we can see him swiping a little bit. Joe Thomas stepped in and did a great job last week filling in at that position. Luckily, we're only playing with really two true linebackers right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that's helpful in that regard. So, hopefully, if we can keep these guys, Jalen Smith and Joe Thomas, healthy, we should be okay. The D-line has to show up. That's what
just
we need help.
Not a ton of depth at that linebacker position.
No, not at all.
Look at Jalen Smith. You see Joe Thomas. Thomas came in and played well. He had a contributing factor in that Los Angeles game. But really, after that, there's a thin line of the linebackers. But you also look at the tight ends. They're pretty thin at tight end now after Blake Jarwin left the game with a torn ACL last week. You take a look at some of the Cowboys tight ends. One of the most notable things, Dalton Schultz, Blake Bell, neither have caught a touchdown pass in the regular season. And Isaiah, it's going to be huge to get these guys involved in the offense, whether it's blocking or receiving.
Absolutely. You need to build these guys' confidence right off the bat. They're playing against a defensive line that is more stout, I believe, than the team that they faced last week. Last week they had a physical specimen in the form of Aaron Donald. This week they have 3 very respectable guys that they're going to be facing on this defensive line. So in order to get those guys' confidence up, you already attested to the fact they haven't scored a touchdown. That's okay. Get these guys out, let them chip a little bit on defensive ends, get them out into some flat routes, get the ball in their hand early so that they can establish a groove.
It's going to be imperative that they establish a groove, get off to a hot start, and they're going to have to do it behind a banged-up offensive line. When we come back here on Cowboys Pregame Live, Danny Surek joins us and tells us about that offensive line and some of the expectations heading into Week 2 when we return.
For one, I love all of those guys, and really praying for their health and to come back stronger. You know, when a linebacker core, it's all about chemistry, and especially me being out there with another linebacker. You know, we have to get our rhythm together. And Leighton, you know, me having to play with a couple other guys just takes a little time for us to get our rhythm. So that's what me and Joe Thomas are working on this week, just dialing in, locking in everything. The beautiful thing is we got guys that can play at the linebacker position. We have depth, all these guys that can play. So, you know, we're locked in and we're ready.
What are some of the challenges the Falcons present to you this week?
Vertical passing presence. You know, obviously having Julio Jones and in their whole core, you know, they like to get after it, throwing the ball. Matt Ryan, I think, over 450 yards last week or something like that. You know, and then with the new addition of Todd Gurley, you know, the number one thing we must do is stop the run. So we're locked in. We got a solid game plan, and at the end of the day, it comes down to execution. So for us, we don't want to beat ourselves. We want to play solid, clean, and physical Dallas Cowboys football.
It's week 2 of the NFL season as the Dallas Cowboys prepare to take on the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to have to do so with a little bit of a banged-up offensive line and with high expectations coming into the year. Danny Surek tells us just how imperative that offensive line will be in today's matchup. Danny?
Week 1 served as an evaluation opportunity for NFL teams who didn't have preseason games to do so this year. One weakness that was showcased for the Cowboys against the Rams in Week 1 was pass protection by the offensive line. Quarterback Dak Prescott was sacked 3 times and hit an additional 7. That puts him on track to be sacked 48 times this year compared to the 23 he was sacked all of last season. The Cowboys are experiencing some key injuries along the offensive line. Starting right tackle Lyle Collins is on the injured reserve list due to a hip injury and isn't available to return until Week 4 at the earliest. Against the Rams, the Cowboys lost swing tackle Cam Irving due to a left knee injury, who's out for a few weeks. And the Cowboys starting left tackle Tyron Smith had some injury concerns this week in practice. Despite these injuries, head coach Mike McCarthy says he expects the offensive line to be more cohesive against the Falcons, and that pass protection is an area the Cowboys were really going to focus on heading into this game.
We were under too much duress, as a protection unit. So, we'll learn from that. As far as not only what we're doing, how we're doing it, and particularly the down and distance tendencies of when we're throwing it and how we're throwing it. So I think it's just part of the product of not being in sync. Not being in sync was not just to one segment of the football team. I think it was pretty consistent throughout every component of our game.
McCarthy says getting the entire team in sync is going to be an area of emphasis for the Cowboys heading into Week 2. Quarterback Dak Prescott says he takes some responsibility for those struggles in Week 1 and that he has to work in tandem with the offensive line to get the ball out of his hand quicker.
Those guys are fighting their tails off, and I always tell them we work together, right? Some of the plays I'm going to need them just to block a little bit longer, and then some of the plays I'm going to have to do my job and help them out and just get the ball out fast. So we've just got to work hand in hand with one another, and obviously they know some plays I can keep alive with my feet, so we just got to be in it together. I know that they're doing the best they can to fight, and as we've seen, Zeke's going to do the best he can as well. So, I trust those guys get the job done, and they trust that I'm going to get the ball out of my hand.
There were some good things that came out of Week 1. The offensive line is looking to carry over into Week 2. Running back Ezekiel Elliott rushed for 96 yards and a touchdown, and quarterback Dak Prescott rushed for 30 on his own. However, the goal this week is to enhance that pass protection, allowing Prescott more time in the pocket and not letting him get hit so many times. Kyle, this is an Atlanta defense who last week against the Seahawks sacked quarterback Russell Wilson 3 times and hit him an additional 10. So that pass protection is really going to be key this week for the Cowboys.
It's going to be tough for that offensive line up against Tack McKinley, Grady Jarrett, and Danny did a great job of breaking it down there. Thanks so much. But, guys, this is an offensive line that has some missing pieces as we take a look at the inactive list heading into Week 2. Ben DiNucci up at the top, but the most important name on that list is the fourth one down, Tyron Smith, big number 77, the left tackle for the Cowboys. Missed 3 games a year ago. He's missed 3 games over the past 4 seasons, but he's out for his first one this week, and that's going to be a huge blow up against a good pass rush.
Yeah, this is a monumental blow. I think we're at DEFCON 5 right now when we get to this offensive line. I mean, these edges are scaring me right now. We're minus Lyle Collins. We're minus Tyron Smith, who's the blind side blocker for Dak Prescott out there. So he got Tack McKinley. You got Dante Fowler on these edges. These guys are no scrubs when it comes to rushing the passer. So right now, I believe they're licking their chops right now. But these edges, Isaiah, they scare me a lot, man.
Yeah, these edges are a problem. In Dallas, we have a problem. This is the worst news that we could have woken up to this morning. You do not, and I repeat, you do not want your backside tackle to be gone, especially when you're already missing your front side tackle, right? Yep. So you have your 2 all-pro tackles that are absolutely missing, and you have a young guy in the right there at the left guard position, and Connor Williams, who he kind of got woken up last week, to say the least. So there's a problem. These guys are going to have to figure it out right now. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'm not sure what their game plan is, because this defensive line, as you attested to, they're no slouches, right? Mm-hmm. They have 3 dogs on that defensive line that are going to bring pressure. They are going to close that pocket in. They are going to school these young guys. They're going to school some of these guys who don't have as many reps as these veteran tackles that we are missing. Don't be surprised if you see Connor Williams at right tackle. Obviously, that's something that he's done out in college, and I think that it might be a move that they might look at doing. And so you might see a carousel on that offensive line going into this game.
Yeah, you might see some moving, some shifting. You got to fit the pieces into the puzzle. And the Cowboys have proven before they can win without Tyron Smith. They're 7-5 in doing so. They're 0-1 without both Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins. That was the Jets game last year when they lost 24-22. When we come back, let's take a look at this Atlanta offense when we return on Cowboys Pregame Live.
I think it was solid. Obviously, we weren't on the field like a whole lot, but I'm pretty sure it looked good when we saw the film. Just didn't get all the big plays that we wanted to. And they're going to come, so we're not worried about it. It's a long season, but I think we meshed well together.
Like CD was pretty hard on himself after that game. What did you pull to the side and just talk to him about, hey, stay in the moment, just don't worry about it, move on?
He knows that. I didn't have to tell him it. I just made sure he was good. He was just like, I don't like to lose. And, that's what you want to see from a young butt like that, because, he put in a lot of time and effort and learning the playbook and coming out here and working. So to see him, really want to win like that, that just shows his character. So he's going to be a good player for us for a long time. So, he'll get right. He won't be pouting like that or anything anymore. He just don't. He want to win. So we all love that.
It's going to be a battle of 2 high-flying offenses as the Dallas Cowboys face the Atlanta Falcons. Kickoff at noon on Fox. Kyle Yeomans, Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback. And guys, this Atlanta offense, you talk about players that are up at the top of their game. How about the top 3 players since 2015 who have had the most yards from scrimmage? Julio Jones, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, all in action today. There's going to be some high-flying offense, but really the key to winning this game for Dallas is stopping that passing attack that includes Matt Ryan. How do you do that, Barry?
Well, look, it's a lot easier said than done. I mean, when you have Julio Jones, who's arguably one of the best wide receivers in the game right now, and you have Calvin Ridley on the opposite side, who's no scrub, it's easier said than done. But I think what this secondary has to do, they have to get physical with these guys at the line of scrimmage. Atlanta's offense, when it's their 3-step or their 5-step drop, when they're deeper developing routes, they're all kind of predicated on timing. So if I feel like these corners can get in the face, they can beat up these guys at the line of scrimmage, I think it'll give them a better chance, and it'll also allow that defensive line to have an extra tick, an extra extra reading the progressions through Matt Ryan to get them after the ball, to do what they do best, and that's to get after the quarterback. So I think they have to beat these guys up at the line of scrimmage.
Well, first of all, you don't stop these guys.
Yeah.
Slow them down.
Let me go ahead and put that out there. You don't stop the Atlanta Falcons receivers. You slow them down, right? You try your best to slow them down. And the best way to slow them down is to stop that dude that's in the backfield by the name of Todd Gurley. If you can control the line of scrimmage, control him, don't let him get off to a good start, you limit them to what they can do, right? Obviously, last week they had to throw the ball over 50 times just to simply compete against Russell Wilson and that crew. So that's kind of what the situation you want to put them in, where you know that they're going to be passing, and you can really kind of then hone in on what you want to do on defense.
It was just the 12th time in Matt Ryan's career that he had thrown over 50 pass attempts in the game. Atlanta's 3-9 now in those contests. But Isaiah, you mentioned it. It's going to start with Todd Gurley in the backfield, and this is a guy who had so much success with the Los Angeles Rams. He moves over to Atlanta, of course, a former Georgia Bulldog. Are you scared of what Todd Gurley presents in that backfield as an offensive threat?
If the defensive line shows up in any form that they showed up in last week, the Cowboys have a problem. Because Todd Gurley not only is one of the best running backs in this game, and I know he feels disrespected in that regard, the way people have been talking about him over the recent years. He's angry. I think he's a lot leaner. He looks like he's a lot more explosive than he's looked in the past few years. So I think Todd Gurley, with his ability to not only run the ball efficiently, but also receive out of the backfield, is going to present a huge problem, as I know that Mike Nolan's going to try to bring pressure. You have to keep an eye on this guy, whether he's running it or catching it.
Well, for me, it's definitely, you're right. You hit the nail in the coffin. Todd Gurley is definitely got his game back from when he was, a couple years ago when he was at that MVP caliber back. Now, I'm not saying he's that guy right now, but he's still going to be an effective back running the football and receiving out of the backfield. And with these injuries that the Dallas Cowboys have on the defensive side of the ball, we're down to our third middle linebacker already. I'm getting kind of nervous. This Todd Gurley might be a big factor in this game.
He might be a big factor, but the bigger factor is that wide receiving core. We talked about it a moment ago. If you're Mike Nolan and you're on that defensive side of the football, which one are you selling out more to stop? Are you with Isaiah and talking about stopping that run game, or are you going with the pass here?
Oh, without a doubt, I'm thinking that they have to stop the run. I think you have to make this Atlanta Falcons team one-dimensional. You have to make them rely on Matt Ryan's arm to beat you, throwing the ball 40 to 45 times. I think that'll give the defense the best opportunity they have to win this game.
Well, you look at last week for Atlanta, 450 passing yards. It was the most in the NFL. Julio Jones had 157 receiving yards, most in the NFL. So they put up big numbers, but they are 0-1, much like the Dallas Cowboys. So the Cowboys going to look to make them one-dimensional heading into week number 2. When we come back, is this a must-win for the Dallas Cowboys? Can they start 0-2? We'll look at some of the percentages of NFL teams past. Can Mike McCarthy turn things around heading into today?
Definitely, starting off with that sour taste in your mouth, understanding how good your team is and how good y'all can be. It's always, a sore feeling, coming out the gates, losing that first one. But it also can be, a ego switch for you if you playing the right way and, transvert that energy and, come out the next game and use it. Right. I always try to put more pressure on myself because I know a lot of guys on the team look up to me and understand the type of, tempo I can bring to the game. So I'm always, trying to put more pressure on myself and trying to help my team any way as possible. But, yeah.
Just under 40 minutes till kickoff between the Dallas Cowboys and the Atlanta Falcons. We're Cowboys pregame live, where both teams come in at 0-1. things are going to get a little nervous for Mike McCarthy come noon as the Cowboys have a lot of injuries to deal with. No Tyron Smith as we take a couple looks inside AT&T Stadium, the home opener of the 2020 season. Thank goodness there's fans in the stands. We're going to hear some crowd noise, unlike last week at SoFi Stadium, but things are not necessarily looking up for the Cowboys based off of the injury report, based off of some of the missing players that they've had and have been put on injured reserve. But is this a must-win for the Dallas Cowboys? That's been the question that's been asked all week. They're 0-1, could be 0-2. Only 11% of teams since 2000 that have started 0-2 have made the playoffs. How important is this game, Barry?
I think it's of the utmost importance. I mean, like you said, you put the stat out there. I'm not a gambling man, but only 11% of the teams starting 0-2 were able to make the playoffs. Those percentages do not favor well for the Cowboys. So I think winning this matchup is of the utmost importance, and they got to do whatever they can to get a W on this column.
You know what I'm going to say, Kyle. Yes, it's an absolute must win. It's not an option for these guys to lose this game. They are going against a serious opponent in the Atlanta Falcons. And coming off of that, if they choose to go 0-2, they have to go to Seattle next week to play some Russell Wilson. It's not what you want to be facing. These guys have to win this game. They have to take care of business today. Fans, if you're listening, they need you today.
They definitely need him, and you see Amari Cooper behind us at the moment. It is a positive that he is active today because, of course, going into the week, he had some foot issues. Even last week, had a hamstring that was kind of bothering him a little bit, but he is back. There's CeeDee Lamb back there as well, and you love CeeDee Lamb being a part of this offense, but the fact of having Amari Cooper back and ready, I think, is going to add an extra element to the Cowboys, don't you think?
Oh, it should. I mean, with him being out there, even if he's not getting, 100, balls being thrown his way or 100 targets, he's at least making that defense focus their attention on him because he's arguably our best wide receiver. And that just opens the door up for Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb to do what they have to do. But him being on the field, he plays his best at home. So I'm looking forward to a big game from Amari Cooper.
Yeah, Amari Cooper, we know he's a baller, right? We know he's a baller, but he has to show up today. And not only does he have to show up, the entire receiving corps has to show up. And when I say that, these guys are going to have to get off the ball. Because with the offensive line worries that we have right now, the woes that we have, right? We don't have our starting right tackles, right? We have rookies. We have young guys in there blocking at guard. This defensive line, this front seven, let's not disrespect this second level of this defense. These linebackers can run around. This defensive coordinator, Morris and Dan Quinn, these guys are going to come up there. They're going to put 8 guys in the box, and they're going to press all the receivers. These guys are going to have to get off the ball, and they're going to have to get off the ball and make big plays.
You mentioned making those big plays against certain spots of that Atlanta defense and really the Atlanta team in general. They're susceptible. They're a good team, especially on the offensive side of the football, but that defense has some weak spots. Barry, is there any place that you're looking at the moment specifically that the Cowboys could exploit on the other side?
If I'm the Cowboys, I'm looking at last week's game. I'm looking at what Seattle and Russell Wilson were able to do to this secondary. They were able to torch them and pretty much do whatever they had to do out there against that Atlanta Falcons defense. Now, what scares me a little bit about this defense is that front line. I mean, there's no scrubs up there. They have Grady Jarrett, and like we mentioned earlier, they got Takk McKinley and Dante Fowler out there. So for me, I'm a little bit worried about that defensive line, but that secondary, I do feel like we can take advantage of it.
Yeah, the Cowboys are going to look to throw the ball a little bit better than they did last week against the Los Angeles Rams. They'll have to get off to a hot start, maybe get Ezekiel Elliott involved, DeMarcus Lawrence, and the entire crew going up against the Atlanta Falcons at noon. When we come back, we'll wrap things up and shift over into kickoff time as we're counting down week 2.
Do it as us being right there. We're right there. We just need to make that extra player to put us over the hump to propel us to winning those games.
When you look back on it, why do you think you guys struggled a little bit on third down?
And obviously they had a very talented front last week, and they got some pressure, and so I think just on some, just kind of a little bit of pressure, got off timing, and I think just this pure execution. So we just got to go out there and focus on extending those drives and scoring in the red zone.
Hey, Zeke, how strange was it playing the game with no fans in the stands? Do you think it's a potential advantage for you guys having fans in the stands this weekend?
Yeah, it was really strange playing with no fans. I think it will be an advantage just because you'll get some crowd noise, but I'm not really sure how many fans we get to have. I don't know if it'll be enough to make that much of a difference, but it was definitely weird just kind of being out there and just kind of having stale air. in that environment, especially when they're not playing any crowd noise, like you really got to bring your own juice. You got to create your own energy. You can't rely on the crowd to kind of feed that to you. So you just got to know mentally that you're going to have to create your own juice going into the game.
The Dallas Cowboys pregame show, live from the Star in Frisco, was brought to you by AT&T. SWBC Mortgage, financial solutions to help you meet your personal and business goals. Visit SWBC.com. And by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. Want to tour AT&T Stadium? For more information, call 817-892-TOUR or visit DallasCowboys.com/tours.
We're not done here for Cowboys pregame live. Join us on the internet side of things, but for the TV side. For Isaiah Stanback, Barry Church, I'm Kyle Yeomans. Enjoy the game, everybody, and go Cowboys. So for those of you watching on the internet side of things, you've got some bonus content coming your way. We're not done yet here with Cowboys pregame live. Like I just said, Kyle Yeomans, Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback as we lead you into kickoff between the Cowboys and the Falcons week 2 of the NFL season. And the home opener at AT&T Stadium. If you're going to the game, stay safe, stay socially distant, but be loud because we need your help, of course, from the Cowboys home field perspective. But guys, whenever you look at this game and really looking back at last week, one of the positives has been Aldon Smith and the way that he was able to play against the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, 11 tackles, he had a sack, a couple quarterback hits. This is a guy who continuously plays well, or at least last week continued to play well on the defensive side of the football. Here's Rob Phillips with more about Aldon Smith.
The Cowboys wanted a better result than their Week 1 loss to the LA Rams, but they couldn't have asked for a better debut from Aldon Smith, playing his first NFL game in almost 5 calendar years. The veteran pass rusher played 54 of 73 defensive snaps against the Rams. He lined up everywhere, left edge, right edge, standing up inside. He had the second most tackles on the team with 12, plus a tackle for loss. His third quarter pressure on Rams quarterback Jared Goff led directly to a Chido Awuzie interception. He also got his first sack since 2015. Smith signed a 1-year deal with the Cowboys in April. He was a dynamic pass rusher early in his career before violations of the league's substance abuse and personal conduct policies led to a league suspension in 2015. He posted 19.5 sacks for the 49ers during their run to the Super Bowl in 2012. Now 30, Smith is reinstated with his life and career back on track. He's a lean, powerful 285 pounds. About 20 pounds heavier than his playing weight in San Francisco. You wouldn't know it by his quickness off the snap. We saw it in training camp, we saw it in Week 1, and with more snaps as the weeks progress, Smith's production could only get better. For DallasCowboys.com, I'm Rob Phillips.
Appreciate it very much, Rob. And he said, hey, his production could only get better. He had quite a bit of production in Week 1, which is really exciting for Cowboys fans. He's the first player since 2018 to post a stat line of 11 tackles, 2 sacks, and a quarterback hit, and only the second one, defensive lineman-wise, since 2015 to post a stat line with all 3 of those DeForest Buckner was the other one that did it. But what does it mean to have a guy like that off of the edge, opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence, to be able to bring pressure and put some pressure on the opposing offenses?
I mean, it means everything in the world. I mean, we saw what, Robert Quinn was able to do last year with 11 sacks. I mean, when you have a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence on that other side over there, it frees up a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of single blocks. And Aldon Smith has been able to take advantage of it early on this season with 11 tackles. He had a sack last game. So I look forward to him to continue that momentum going forward with the season. I was one of those guys that in the beginning I thought, hey, there's no way this guy after 5 years can come back and have the effect that he's had. But it looked like he only missed 5 games out there. I mean, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid for Aldon Smith. I hope he continues to do this because our defense is going to need it.
Was the Kool-Aid red?
It was red.
Red Kool-Aid. Okay, cool.
A lot of sugar in it, too.
There you go. There you go. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
No, having Aldon Smith is everything for these guys. As you guys mentioned, he missed 5 years, right? He missed 5 years. So in our head, there's no way you come back in the NFL and be effective on this defensive line. But he was just that. He was super effective. He came in. He established the line of scrimmage, right? He really was the attitude of this defense, if you really want to call it how it is. Everybody on this defense needs to look to him now as honestly the leader of this defense. Vander Esch is gone. Jalen Smith is there, right? But I think that this gentleman right here is really the one who's going to set the tone for the defense, and everybody needs to look to him and say, hey, this is how we operate every play, every snap.
And it's such a great story for him to come back from some of the struggles that he had as a part of the NFL previously, and then one of the reasons why he left the NFL and was able to work his way back. The fact that he's playing well, this is somebody that Cowboys fans can cheer for. This is somebody that you can get behind and continue to push in the right direction. And if he's a leader for your squad, we saw flashes of Everson Griffin behind us a moment ago. This is a defensive line that has leadership, that has these veterans that are going to be able to step up and make an impact. And hopefully for the Cowboys, they're able to make an impact today because they're going to need that defensive pass rush in order to slow down this Atlanta offense. But as far as the Cowboys offense goes, there's a lot to be improved there as well. Kellen Moore talked about it early this week about how the Cowboys could improve their attack on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, like at first game, a bunch of positives, ultimately not enough positives, plenty of things to improve on. You look at it, you move the ball all right. We're productive, efficient. At the end of the day, third downs weren't good enough, and you score 17 points. And a bunch of little things, a lot of details that add up to that, and you put yourself in that situation.
What was the problem on third down? I'm sorry, I don't know if you answered this question. What was the problem on third down? Why was the efficiency so bad, and what do you need to clean up?
Yeah, I think, there's a combination. You're always going to look at yourself and say, hey, maybe I could have gone to this, maybe I could have gone to that. We can execute better. We can get some first downs a little bit better. There's a lot of things that go through those processes, and everyone kind of takes a piece of it, and we learn from it. And it's been a key part of ours, and we just got to grab it back next week.
Really, as far as the offense goes in week one, Ezekiel Elliott, was one of the best positive bright spots in terms of Kellen Moore and that entire offense. The rest of the offense kind of struggled a little bit, kind of got off to a staggered start. But what are some of the places that you could see an improvement in going into week two, Barry?
Well, the improvement for me, I think, is going to have to be with the coaches, with Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy. I mean, I think this game is going to rely a lot on them putting that game plan together. I mean, we're working with a patchwork offensive line right now. No disrespect to those guys, but I mean, there's a lot of missing pieces that we have right now. So Kellen Moore, I think, is going to have to be more creative with his play calling. I think he'll have to make it more of a lateral game instead of a vertical game. Now, whether that's a lot of bubble screens to the receivers or Ezekiel Elliott out the backfield or a lot of three-step, he's going to have to figure out a way to make this offensive effective with this patchwork offensive line that he has right now.
Yeah, I believe that he just has to resist the cake, right? I mean, the cake is out there. He has 3 guys out here that he really wants to get the ball to, right? It's kind of like the little kid. You leave the little kid in the room and then you put the donut in the middle and like, do you touch it? No, don't touch it. So, you have to trust Zeke, right? We always talk about Freaky Zeke, and he established the run last week, right? They did a great job establishing the run with Ezekiel Elliott. He was consistent. He was toting that thing. He was hungry. Y'all see him feeding himself. Y'all see him with the belly. All right, he was doing all that, right? But they got away from it. Right, and they got away from it, and he wanted to get the ball into his other 3 receivers' hands, and when that happened, you lost momentum, right? You lost momentum, you lost that drive, you lost that consistency that they had. So trust the process. You are a running team with great receivers. Be that.
Okay. Well, and a lot of times, Cowboys fans and critics out there tend to forget, this is only game 17 as Kellen Moore is a play caller in the NFL.
This is true.
And really some of those were kind of iffy back in 2019. So the fact that he's still learning as an offensive coordinator and as a play caller, does that give you any kind of positivity going into a game like this where you need him to be creative, and he's known to be creative all week long?
Oh, you definitely got to look at it as a positive. And for the fact that he has, as the leadership as McCarthy, as a guy who's been to the top of the pinnacle and has been known as being an offensive genius, for him to have him as that teacher, as that mentor, I think will prove dividends for him calling this game this week.
Yeah, I don't. Kellen Moore has his work cut out for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kellen Moore wants to drop back. He wants to show off these shiny toys that we have, right? We talked about earlier in the week how he has all these race cars out there, right? He has a struggle because he's not going to have the ability to sit back and throw the ball in the way he wants to, right? These guys are not going to allow it. Dan Quinn's not going to allow it. He's going to put pressure on these guys. He's going to have guys in the box. These guys are going to be all in these receivers' face. So it's really going to come down to Dak. Can he get the ball out? Can he call the right protections, right? He's going to have to fan it over to Fowler and protect himself because they're going to have to get the ball out quick. So you're not going to see these big plays in terms of guys running for forever. It's going to be quick hitters and guys are going to have to break tackles and go make plays.
And Isaiah's looking ahead on the rundown a little bit because we're talking about that Atlanta pass rush here because they got to Russell Wilson 3 times last week. He was definitely under duress throughout the course of the game. Still had 322 passing yards, but ultimately it was the run game paired with the passing game for Seattle that ultimately got to him later in the ball game. But overall, you look at Takk McKinley, Dante Fowler Jr., Isaiah, is this the scariest part of this Atlanta defense?
Absolutely. In terms of personnel, yes, this is the scariest part because unlike last week you had one guy, maybe 2 that you really had to worry about, right? Aaron Donald is who he is. This week, you have 3 out of the 4 guys that everybody knows about, right? Everybody knows about these guys. You talk about McKinley, you talk about Fowler, you talk about Jarrett. Jarrett is only 1 step behind Aaron Donald. Let's not disrespect him. So these guys are going to get pressure not only interiorly but on the outside. And then you have these linebackers that are going to be filling the gaps as well. I'm more concerned with the defensive coordinator. Right, you have Raheem Morris and you have a Dan Quinn. If you remember, Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator for Seattle when they had their defense back in the day when it was winning Super Bowls. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the personnel for sure up on the front line, but those defensive coordinators, there's really 2 of them. That's where I think that's where they're going to win the game, possibly win the game at.
Okay, yeah, with me as well. I mean, like we touched on it earlier, those edges, man, they're scaring the death out of me right now. And like you said, you got Takk McKinley on one side, who's just a high motor guy. He can get after the quarterback. He can play the run extremely well. You got Grady Jarrett in the middle, like you said, who's only a step below Aaron Donald, and that's not a big step. I mean, so Joe Looney and Connor Williams, they're going to have to step their game up from last week. And on that other side, I had the pleasure of playing with Dante Fowler down in Jacksonville. And let me tell you, there's a reason he got paid over there. This guy can get after the quarterback. He's very athletic, very fast, and has an array of pass rush moves. So those edges for the Cowboys, I mean, they're going to have their work cut out for them.
And Danny Sarek talked about it earlier with the offensive line as we see some of those guys, Brandon Knight, Terrence Steele, even Connor Williams. There's plenty of holes in the offensive line going up against those pass rushers. It's going to be tough for the Cowboys overall to find a way to slow them down and to find a way to give Dak Prescott time to throw the football. But guys, as we head into this matchup and we look ahead to Atlanta and Dallas, both teams really desperate at the moment, 0-1 after the first week of the season. Both teams with high expectations. What are some of your keys to the game heading into the noon kickoff?
Well, for me, my keys to the game is pretty simple. I mean, and we touched on it a little bit earlier. It's you have to stop this run. You have to slow down Todd Gurley. If you're able to make the Atlanta Falcons rely solely on the arm of Matt Ryan throwing the ball 40 to 45 times, I think you'll have a great opportunity to win this game. It'll allow that defensive line to do what they do best, and that's hunt the quarterback with Aldon Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, and those guys in the interior. So for me, you got to slow down that running back. You have to make this team one-dimensional.
For myself, on the offensive side of the ball, the Cowboys have to establish a run. I mentioned it earlier. Ezekiel Elliott has to get the ball. He has to get it often. Feed the beast, right? Let him do what he does. And then also on offense, they're going to have to be able to make plays at the receiver position on shorter routes. They're going to have to make the catches, the tough catches, right? The contested catches, and they're going to have to break these tackles and get some of that yak yardage, right? And be able to go make big plays. That's how they're going to eat on offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Poe. We can't play Poe. We got to show up. Okay, we got to show up on the defensive line. We need a presence there. We have to control the line of scrimmage and not allow Todd Gurley to get off.
Yeah, that interior of the defensive line is going to play key. I'm right there with you, Isaiah. Whenever it's Dontari Poe, he didn't necessarily show up a whole lot last week. Tristan Hill, he needs a better game. Antoine Woods in the depth there. Neville Gallimore. I think all of those guys really need to show up and really put pressure on the interior of an offensive line for Atlanta that isn't the greatest. Atlanta has some offensive line issues of their own right now, even though they're kind of different issues. It's not necessarily injuries. It's first-round picks playing up to their caliber. So if the Cowboys can slow down that offensive line, can get pressure on the quarterback of Matt Ryan, force him to make a couple of mistakes, help out your secondary, I think that's going to pay key to the Cowboys winning this game. But it's going to be fun. Noon kickoff on Fox. The Atlanta Falcons come in for the home opener of the 2020 season for Barry Church and Isaiah Stanback. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Enjoy the game, everybody. Week 2 is here. Let's go Cowboys.